All right, so I do think I will get us started. I'm Susan McCrae, a member of this committee, and it is my honor I get to welcome you all to the fourth Greg Farrell Award presentation, which is incredibly exciting. I want to do one thing before we move on, which is to take this moment to remember our good friend, Leah Rugen. So for those of you who don't know, Leah Rugen died a year ago and is a very good friend of all of those in this committee. She was one of the founding members of New York City Outward Bound, and she is very much with us tonight. We could not have a Greg Farrell event without Leah. And I know she's also with us all the time, always, every day. I know she is for me. So I had to take a moment to remember and honor Leah. And I'm also incredibly pleased to say that her daughter, Julia, has joined this committee. And she is absolutely amazing, happens to be my goddaughter. And we will be hearing from her later tonight. So that's super exciting. And now I get to hand things off to Santa Randolph. So Santa, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you, Susan, for
Yeah.
starting us off and warming us up as you always do with your terrific energy, and for immersing us so well in Greg's approach to life and in the qualities and spirit that the Greg Farrell Award seeks to celebrate and support. And thank you, too, for highlighting how much Leah Rugen meant to all of us, her connection to Greg, and how integral she was to everything associated with this award, and how pleased we all are to have Leah's daughter Julia be part of our selection committee in her place. It's a wonder to have Julia with us. So it's my pleasure again to welcome you and to thank you for being part of this very special occasion. I want to send an extra warm welcome to members of Greg's family and close circle of friends and fans, and to David Adams's family and friends and colleagues. And very shortly, we'll be getting to the actual presentation of this year's Greg Farrell Award to David. But first, I'd like to say a few words about how and why the award was created. So as everybody knows, Greg was a very unique human being and very special and very beloved by everyone who knew him, and even those who met him only briefly in airports or in the hospital. The magic of his spirit just beamed out and touched everyone around him so easily and naturally. And his loving wisdom has inspired and influenced untold numbers of people. So this award was created, as mentioned before, by a group of staff members of New York City Outward Bound, like myself, and almost everybody you'll be hearing from today. We all had the privilege and good fortune to work with Greg, starting in the very early days of New York City Outward Bound, to help him bring Outward Bound into the city where he believed its philosophy, its principles, and pedagogy were needed the most and could do enormous good. And most of us were recruited personally by Greg. And like so many here today, we were all deeply impacted by Greg and so grateful for the opportunity to know and collaborate with him, see him in action, learn from him, soak up his wisdom, and delight in his humor, his uproarious laugh, and his memorable chuckles. For over 35 years, he was our guide, our mentor, our friend, and inspiration. So when Greg passed away in 2020, we decided, excuse me, I have a throat problem. We decided to find some way to honor his legacy, to keep his special spirit alive and afoot in the world, and to keep that unique spark of his glowing, to ignite and nurture Greg-like qualities in others. So we quickly landed on the idea of creating and contributing to an annual award in his name with a cash gift of $5,000 to celebrate his special qualities, which are summarized in the tagline that you saw on the screen and they were talking about a part of the leaving the world a better place part. So thankfully, with the help of Greg's sons, Nick and Andy, as well as Paolo Vito and Janet Redondo and their terrific team at New York City Outward Bound Schools, we then reached out to Greg's vast and very rich network of contacts to solicit nominations, hoping to encourage and honor others who are also trying to light sparks in others, live boldly and vividly, and leave the world a better place for all. As many of you may remember, each of the 3 previous year's winners has brought the award's tagline to life with the inspiring work that they're doing. First, Pascal Florestal, a rising star in the theater world in Boston, seeking to make it more inclusive and more diverse. And then Moses Senyojo, I'm going to pronounce it better, Senyojo, who's an educational leader and community organizer in Rwanda, who leads an expeditionary learning style school there. And last year, Tanya Dreyer, who organizes fundraising trips in Nepal and works in a very organic way to bring attention and resources to Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a disease that unfortunately has afflicted her son, Gus. All were incredibly worthy recipients of this award. So now I'm going to turn things over to my dear friend and favorite boss, Richard Stopel, to tell you more about this year's very impressive group of nominees.
Thanks, Anna. So really appreciate your highlighting really so beautifully how this award came about and why it's so meaningful to us. And, you know, one of the joys of being associated with this award, being part of the selection committee in particular, is that we get to review all of the nominations and in the process are introduced to a group of people like these nominees you see on the screen who are really doing extraordinary difference-making work that's worthy of being celebrated. So this evening, not only are we celebrating David Adams with this award, but we're celebrating each of these nominees. And all are working in their own distinctive and I would say highly laudable ways to really make a difference and in their communities and their world to make them more equitable, more humane, more just. And I know that Greg would be very proud that we're celebrating each of these nominees under the banner of an award in his name. And we should all be really proud of these nominees for the work they're doing and the personal examples that they're setting. And I also think we should be very grateful to them for giving us, I think, renewed faith in our future at a time when, you know, when that's, I think, sorely needed. So again, I want to thank all the 2023 nominees and all the nominees that we've had the privilege of learning about and being inspired by over the 4 years that this award has been in existence. So really, it's just so affirming to know that there are people doing this kind of work in the world. So I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit and turn to the presentation of the award of this year's award to our recipient, 2023 recipient, David Adams, and to introduce David and say a few words about why he's so deserving of this award. I'm going to turn things over momentarily to Ron Berger, who's the senior advisor at EL Education, who many of you know, and who's the person who nominated David for this award. But before I do that, I can't resist saying a few words about Ron. And I'd say Ron is someone who I deeply admire and respect. We were talking about Ron in my breakout room. Actually, one person named Ron as the person who's leaving the world a better place, and I amen to that. And you know, I could be here. We'd be here for a very, very long time if I were to list out for you all the ways in which I admire and respect Ron. And I would simply say that he's one of the most brilliant and inspiring educators in the United States. And he has multiple superpowers, I think, as an educator. But the one, from my perspective, chief among them is this really deep and abiding belief that he has in young people and their capabilities, which never fails to inspire me. But I would say that much more important than Ron's educational bona fides is the fact that he's an exemplary human being. You know, that he, like Greg and like David, is a person, and I'm going to use a phrase here that I think's fallen slightly out of favor these days, but feels just so apt here. He's a person of high character, and he's someone whose compassion and integrity and empathy comes through in every interaction with him. So we're really delighted that Ron's able to join us. He's fresh off a flight to San Diego, where he's attending a conference, and I'm going to turn things over to Ron Berger.
Thank you, Richard. That was so kind of you. I'm honored to be here with all these people that I admire. And I'll start by saying that I met Greg more than 30 years ago, before Expeditionary Learning Outward Bound, or now EL Education, existed. And I was brought into EL because of Greg, like so many of us. And he was a mentor for me, and just basically like Yoda forever, a guide in my life, like he was for so many of us. And I am so pleased that my nomination of David Adams came to fruition here. And I'll start by just saying I need to give you a little background about David Adams, about his career, but that's not why I nominated him. So I will say his background is that he works for urban assembly schools, which many of you know are very much like New York City Outward Bound schools and EL Education schools. It's a network in New York City. He led social emotional learning work for Urban Assembly, and then took over as the CEO and president of Urban Assembly. But he also expanded the work of Urban Assembly and social emotional learning and character from just working in New York City to being a national provider and a national consultant of social emotional learning growth all over the country. He's written books. He has a terrific podcast. He speaks at events. He's a national leader in the world of social emotional learning. He's on the board of CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. But none of those are the reason I nominated David. I nominated David because I just think Greg Farrell would love David Adams, as I do. And he's just a Greg Farrell human being. So I met David when he was representing Urban Assembly and I was representing EL Education. We found ourselves in the same conferences and the same spaces. And I felt like we were in some kind of all-star game, and he played for a different team, but he was immediately a soulmate for me and was the person that I ended up spending all my time with in those gatherings, and since became one of the people I admire most in education in America. And here's why I admire David Adams so much. Yes, he's a leader in that field, but he is the kind of stellar human being that Greg Farrell was, that Greg Farrell always sought and lifted up in the world. David has a different way of speaking about character than anyone I've met. And it comes because he breaks the stereotype that you're either a tough guy in the world or a compassionate and kind person in the world, because he's both. He's a leader in the US Army. He's physically strong. He's courageous and tough. He's manly in all the way men are supposed to be manly. And at the exact same time, he's compassionate and kind and sensitive in a way that it takes a whole different side of men to be that way. And when he talks about character, it's equally being courageous and tough in the world and being compassionate and kind in the world. And one of the ways I see that the most is that his tenderness for his sons, Elijah and Isaiah, is something that's beautiful to see. Every night, David would do a character conversation with his sons before bed. And my wife and I were lucky enough to be able to sit in via Zoom to some of those character conversations where they talk about, how do you become a good human being in the world? What does it mean to be a good human being? And what does it mean to be a man in this world and a good man in this world? So I just think David Adams is the kind of guy that if Greg met him, he'd say, that's the kind of fella you want to be in the raft with. That's the kind of fella you want to be on the trail with. And I was fortunate to spend a week in a raft with David Adams in an outward bound trip. And he is the person that everyone in that crew wanted to be in the raft with. So I am so pleased to be able to honor David today. And Richard, thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. So, that was beautiful. And Ron ended his nomination of David with the line, Greg would have loved him. And I think he just gave testimony as why that's the case. So I'm gonna turn things over to Susan early on, introduced our newest member of our selection committee, and somebody who we're just thrilled to have as part of the selection committee, Julia Farrell. And earlier today, a few of us had the chance, an opportunity to spend a little time with David prior to this award ceremony. And it was a chance to get to know David better and for David to get to know Greg a little better. But mostly what we wanted to do was present him with one of the prizes that's associated with this award. Susanna mentioned early on that it does come with a cash award, but there's something else that's part of this award that has great symbolic meaning to us. And I'm going to turn things over to Julia to share with you why that symbolic object is what it's about and what its meaning is.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, as Richard said, like as our tradition, there are 2 physical gifts to the Greg Farrell Award. And in addition to presenting David with the cash award, we wanted to be able to present him a physical token of our appreciation for the work that he does and the way in which he does it. So after great deliberation, we ultimately landed on the idea of a wooden spoon. And earlier today, Richard, Nick, and I visited David at the Urban Assembly offices to give him his wooden spoon. So David, your spoon was hand carved by a wonderful craftsman in Harrisville, New Hampshire. His name is Phil Clare Gargan, and he is also part of the worldwide Outward Bound family. Both he and his son worked at the Zimbabwean Outward Bound School. It's become a tradition that began with Greg presenting each of us with a hand-carved wooden spoon years ago on a river trip out in Colorado. My family spoon was gifted to my mom and is now kept in a prominent place in our dining room. Whenever I'm back home, looking at it evokes happy memories. From the story told that night on the river and from the many wooden spoons and bowls in Greg's home in the Adirondacks, you could tell a hand-carved wooden spoon meant something to him. One reason is likely because, like Outward Bound, there's something elemental about a spoon. He appreciated the obvious connection to nature that the wood represented, but he also appreciated the craftsmanship, one of the 4 pillars of Outward Bound that goes into it. The humble spoon is also a symbol of nourishment and, by extension, community. How communities nourish us, how we nourish each other. Coming together to break bread and share a meal is a symbol of another Outward Bound pillar, above all, compassion, as its motto states. Despite its commemorative role in the Greg Farrell Award, this spoon is not meant to be precious. Greg would want it put to good use. He would want you to stir up some good trouble with it, using it to conjure creativity and community and compassion, to light sparks, live boldly, and leave the world a better place. So David, congratulations. I hope you enjoy your spoon, and I now invite you to share your remarks.
Well, thank you, Julia. As Ron told me about this award, one condition on accepting the award was that my wife and children take precedence over myself, which I graciously agreed to. And so I'm going to turn it over to my wife, Tamika, and my 2 boys, and then I'll have some brief remarks in gratefulness and thank you. So Tamika?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamika Adams, David's wife. I just wanted to say that we are beyond proud that you have chosen David for this award. David's dedication to improving public education, social emotional learning, and character education is nothing short of inspiring. Every day, he tirelessly works to make a difference in the lives of others, and tonight we honor him for his incredible achievements. From the bottom of our hearts, we are immensely proud of everything David has accomplished and the positive impact he continues to make. So congratulations, David. We love you. As Ron had mentioned earlier, each night before bed, we have our children participate in what we call our character ed session. This is a time where we review quotes and we just discuss lessons about life. So the boys wanted to share a little bit about what they've learned during these sessions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaiah Adams. Dada, we are very proud of you. One lesson I've gained from character ed at home is resilience. When I'm angry, I use my resilience to calm down. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. One thing I've learned from character ed at home is that I have to be resilient and calm down if I'm upset. I also learned that everything we do defines who we are and our character. Thank you, congratulations, Dad, for the award.
Thank you, boys, and
Thank
thank you.
you.
Timmy.
We love you.
And thank you, Ron, for the opportunity for my family to be featured here tonight. I will just make some brief remarks of appreciation. I want to say thank you to my family. I spoke briefly with Nick, Greg's son, today, and Nick said that Greg was his hero, even as he worked to make the world a better place. And I often struggle with the responsibilities and how to balance them. And Nick, hearing your story of your father and being your hero gives me faith that I can continue to be my boy's hero and still make the world a better place. So I say thank you, Nick, for that sharing. Ron, thank you. Thank you for your guidance, for your mentorship, for your love. Thank you for pushing my thinking. Thank you for helping me be a better person and think about what the world could be if we made choices about who we want to be in the world. So thank you for that, Ron. I want to say thank you to my Chief of Staff, Jillian Finley, who is my partner at my job over at the Urban Assembly. I appreciate your partnership and your support in helping me do the things that are important in the world. And then I want to say thank you to the committee, as well as Richard Kahn, who is the founder of Urban Assembly. I think that we all can give something. I think that we all have something to give. I think that our education system is a reflection of who we want to be in the world. And I'm very, very grateful that I am in a position to give something to the world that hopefully makes a difference. So thank you to everybody. Thank you so much for this honor. It's humbling. And I hope that I can live up to Greg's legacy. So thank you.
So thank you, David. My name is Paul Herdman. I'm coming from Delaware, and I was part of the original crew with Greg and the rest of the team. It is, as a father, just so beautiful to see you with your boys, and Tamika, well said, as well as your boys. I wish I had actually had this started a few years ago. My kids are now grown. I have a lot of lessons to have learned. But thank you very much. And as we bring this ceremony to a close, I have a couple of things I was just going to share. One is that we want folks to continue to think about making contributions to this award. And if you've given in the past, think about this as an annual award and just add it to your list. And as you think about folks like David and the half a dozen or so other nominees that were amazing for this year, continue to put forward names of folks that you've put forward in the past, and let's continue to broaden the circle. As we mentioned, this is a global award, not just a national one. So continue to think about nominees. We'll put up an opportunity for you to put forward a nomination. The process will begin in the fall. At this point, I'm going to just turn it over to my dear friend, Dennis Udall, to close us out. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Let me get my, sorry here, let me get this set up here. So my name is Dennis Udall, as Paul said, and I'm here because Greg was probably my #1 mentor in life, other than my father. And I actually had the good luck of telling Greg that very thing, probably about a couple of years before he died. Very meaningful to me to be able to express that. I was also, like Paul, original staff member of the New York City Outward Bound Center, and then I went on to be an original staff member of EL Schools. And so we thought we'd end with a short video clip from EL's 25th anniversary gala, where Greg is speaking about his early experience with Outward Bound in Colorado and how it gave him the inspiration to bring Outward Bound to urban schools. And so we'll play that clip, and then I'll be back in a minute.
I first went on an Outward Bound course in 1964, right after Outward Bound first came to this country. I had been a high school English teacher, and I remember thinking on this Outward Bound course, this is great. We're learning stuff we're never going to forget, and there are no lectures. We're just learning by making mistakes. Isn't that the great way to learn? We're just learning by trying stuff we've never tried, and we're doing things we think are impossible, and then we do them, and we're taking care of each other. And the whole ethic here is not, let's see who can get over the mountain first. It's, let's see how we can get everybody over the mountain. What a great idea. What a great metaphor for schools.
So this is Greg. He was an amazing speaker, a man who really could say, was incredibly eloquent. And I think this illustrates a favorite saying of Greg's was, and to put it in his words, why can't school be more like Outward Bound? So I know that David and Urban Assembly may be relatively new to Outward Bound. I know they've had a past relationship with the New York City Outward Bound Center, but I'm sure that they'd agree with these words of Greg's. So we'll close with some words of wisdom from our own Richard Stolple, who you just heard from, that captures this sentiment perfectly. Excuse me. And it's from an essay that Richard wrote called The Surprising Antidote for What Ails Americans' Schools. And the essay begins with this very question: why can't school be more like an Outward Bound course? And it's a couple of pages. Perhaps we can send it to you, but I'll just end with the essay's conclusion. And here's Richard's words. Outward Bound offers a powerful pedagogical formula for excellence and equity that blends challenge and support to bring out the best in young people, promotes belonging and community while also attending to individual needs, encourages youth agency and voice, injects joy and adventure into their learning, and places equal emphasis on intellectual and social development. Really sounds a lot like Urban Assembly and David. So we'll leave you with these thoughts, thoughts that I think, are shared by everybody that has a vision for schools that are places where, as Greg said about, you just heard about Greg's reflections on his early Outward Bound experience. And in his words, when he was on the Outward Bound trip, there were there were things that we thought were impossible, but we did them, and we took care of each other. And the whole ethic here was, to use Greg's words, not let's see who can get over the mountain first, but let's see how we can get everybody over the mountain. So thank you, Greg, and thank you to everyone here, and goodbye.